Hello, this is Dr. Harriet Fraad on Capitalism Hits Home, an interpersonal update. This is a show about the intersection of capitalism, class, and our personal lives. Today, I'm going to talk about sexual harassment and sexual abuse. It's an everyday topic in America, whether we're talking about Kelly, or we're talking about Louis C.K., or we're talking about Lester Moonves. Sexual abuse and sexual assault are everyday events in America, because every day some powerful guy or some powerless guy is assaulting someone or harassing someone. There's a change, however. Sexual assault and abuse have gone on forever. However, now women are calling out their abusers, and some men are doing the same. Now, sex abusers are confronted across the globe, places which you wouldn't expect to be able to be so powerfully against sexual harassment, sexual abuse, and even sexual discrimination are standing up. In India, 5 million women in Kerala joined hands against the discrimination against women in a Hindu temple, where women weren't allowed to go because they're considered unclean and temptresses in this temple of a sage who was celibate, as if this dead sage is going to get tempted. In any case, 5 million women joined hands across Kerala, very powerfully. Also, in India, in a small city outside New Delhi, men and women were outraged when a father and his friend beheaded and tortured a 16-year-old girl who went to her boyfriend's birthday party without permission. Because of the hue and cry, the father, who claimed he was justified, it was an honor killing because she went without permission to this party, was nonetheless arrested, and so was his friend, who threw acid in this 16-year-old's face, chopped off her arm, and beheaded her, left her at the side of the road. In Indonesia, a woman who was sexually harassed with obscene phone calls from her boss played a copy of one of those 15-minute sexual harangues because she hoped to present it to the higher-ups who would give her another boss or fire this man. She also showed it to some co-workers, one of whom recorded her recording of this sexual harasser and played it to others. She then tried to bring a case. In that case, the man brought a countersuit, and she was found guilty of spreading libelous messages, even though she didn't spread it. Her coworker testified the coworker spread it. And also, it's hardly libel if she's just recording what a man is saying himself. There was such a hue and cry, she got a retrial. He was exonerated again, and because of outrage on the part of Indonesians, the candidate who is running for prime minister said if he got in, she'd be exonerated, and she didn't serve any more jail time than she'd already served. Because although this has been going on all the time, people are outraged about it. Even in America, in the latest, the Daily Caller, which is owned by Fox News, Tucker Carlson, an heir to the Swanson frozen food fortune, had a picture of what they said was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the bathtub, where her feet were up and visible, and her breasts were seen in the faucet, as a reflection in the faucet. Because of America's personal change and honesty about sex, a man with a website that is a sex website for foot fetishists claimed, no, those are not Cortez's feet. And then Sidney Leathers, who was a sexting partner of Anthony Weiner, who is well known, she said, no, those are my feet, and I'll claim those are my feet. And they were on the sex fetish network. And I support Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So that because sexual perversions and strangenesses, or whatever they are now no longer a secret, and because women are no longer ashamed, this got outed, and Tucker Carlson had to apologize, saying, of course, he didn't know. She didn't accept that for a minute because she's very smart and right on it. So these are just a few little indications. Every day you can look on the net or read the paper and you'll find out about sexual harassment and sexual abuse. I am going to question why this is suddenly being exposed, since it's been around always. And I'll look at the phenomenon through a feminist and a Marxist lens. In the U.S. today, we have a president who has 19 sexual assault accusations levied against him right now. His former Democratic Party challenger, Hillary Clinton, life partner of another guilty party, Bill Clinton, who not only sexually assaulted several women, but both Bill Clinton and Donald Trump went together on the Lolita Express, a jet owned by Jeffrey Epstein that allowed rich men to rape young underage girls on a jet and then land at what was called Orgy Island, or Sex Slave Island, where they got to continue assaulting young women, many of whom were tricked into coming on these flights. There was a woman in England who sued because she was tricked into Jeffrey Epstein's flight, but she had so many death threats from Trump's people and others that she dropped her lawsuit. Of course, neither Trump nor Clinton aired each other's exploits on the Lolita Express, since they were both tarred with the same sexual assaulter's brush. They're joined by powerful men and also ordinary men in every field of every color and ethnicity throughout the world. Whether men in high places, like the priests of Ireland, where 40,000 orphans testified to the sexual abuse, their sexual abuse by priests, both males and females, although mainly males. There have been sexual assaults by people using their power against others. They're not all perpetrated by men. Women who are supervisors and employers also try to sexually harass the men who are their underlings. However, they don't sexually assault them because women tend to be much less strong. The publicity goes to male sexual assaulters, whether like Kevin Spacey assaulting young men or Weinstein assaulting women. I enter this class process, I enter this whole analysis looking at what I see as a class process, that it's related to a class process, a feudal class process. Now, what do I mean? We're not in feudalism. Feudalism didn't only exist in the medieval era. Feudalism as an economic phenomenon relates to one person, like the feudal lord, or like a man who owns his household, owning the place where another person works, taking a portion of that work, whether it's a portion of the crop of a feudal serf, or a portion of the cleanliness, the cooked food, the emotional labor, the sexual labor, the child rearing of someone in the house, and allows that person to survive and reproduce with the share left to her or him. The United States, ironically enough, was founded on a principle of liberty and justice for all and against feudal oppression. However, feudalism has been going on in the household ever since the founding and way before the founding. in the United States. And it's still alive today. U.S. women's sexuality was a feudal perk. Although rape was considered a crime, even in colonial times, spousal rape was not criminalized until 1993, when it was criminalized in every state. And that was because a woman's sexuality was the property of her husband, the way the feudal crops were the property of the lord of the manor. That was a reality that is confirmed in the Old Testament, where every woman or any woman who practiced the right to dispense her sexuality with whomever she pleased outside of a male's control were considered whores. Harlots is what they say in the Bible. And that entitled them to be raped and killed. In other words, any man, rich or poor, by virtue of his gender as a man, like the virtue of being born a lord, this is by being born a man, could control a woman's sexuality as a perk of his marriage contract or his contract as a feudal lord. They could have their way with women. They had the right of first night, where they had sex with a young woman before she was married. The remnants of that perk live on in sexual harassment and sexual assault. Here, of course, the feudal class process mingles with other class processes. Women are sexually molested and assaulted in a capitalist workplace. Employers and those with power of employment or job loss, supervisors, employers, can use their economic power to coerce women's sexuality, or at least to try, like Donald Trump, who wielded his power to make or break your career as Miss America, or as a woman on The Apprentice show, could access women's sexuality and brag about bragging their pussies because he's famous and powerful. This is practiced throughout our system, extracting sexuality from anyone, from waitresses, farm workers, maids, house cleaners, are often accompanied by a perk of sexual access from someone gaining power. Waitresses are subject to sexual harassment and abuse and assault by their bosses, managers, and potentially tip-giving customers. One of the things that Stormy Daniels said was she was glad to be a stripper, it made money, and she couldn't be touched, whereas when she was a waitress, she was constantly grabbed and had to tolerate it and made $2.14 an hour before tips. So hotel maids are another big candidate. Now they have to have buttons that ring when there's an emergency, and that was started when France's next president, the one slated to be the next president and the head of the International Monetary Fund, Dominique Strauss-Kahn, came out of his room naked, assaulted the maid, Nafissatou Diallo, and forced her to perform oral sex. She had the courage to report him, but he certainly must have felt entitled to do such a thing. Aspiring actresses are assaulted and harassed by producers and directors a la Harvey Weinstein. Tech designers are harassed and assaulted while they are trying to get new apps funded by powerful men. Students who want good grades and recommendations are assaulted and harassed by their professors. Saleswomen selling big-ticket items like computers are assaulted and harassed by their potential customers. Because these men feel that sexual access is somehow a perk of their power. That's a leftover feudal perk. There are, of course, other motives for sexual assault. However, we need to explore those. One of those is child-rearing practices and gender interaction. There are also culprits shaping the crime of sexual assault and sexual harassment. It's well established that gender concepts of what is a male and what is a female and what one is entitled to do as a male or a female develop permanently in children by the time they're 3 to 5 years of age. Gender roles, particularly the male gender role, is a major problem. That problem has two parts. One is that even now, the culture endows men with the pressure to become primary wage earners, while it endows women with pressure to become primary nurturers and child rearers. This is strange. In the U.S. now, male children are brought up in a powerful matriarchy. Their mothers, their daycare workers, their babysitters, their teachers, their baby nurses, all these powerful figures that are in charge of their lives are women. Their earliest sense of the female sex is those who preside over their most helpless ineptitude, their powerlessness, and their dependency and humiliation, as well as their survival. Men may hold on to these feelings of the humiliation of their need for powerful women and resentment of the power that women had over them. Taking control through sexual assault is a way to accomplish 3 different aims. One is to reduce women to shame through using their sexuality. Another, to take control over their own need for women by humiliating the women they need. And the third is to take over female power through taking sexual control. Another enabler of sexual assault is also related to our matriarchal child-rearing practices. Girls have a present model of what it is to be a woman. A woman is a nurturer. A woman is a mommy. Girls play with dolls and practice being mommies. They can and do identify with the powerful roles that nurture them and take care of them. Boys don't have present models because most men don't spend time interacting with their children, especially their babies. In the time studies of the United States, women spend 4 times as much time with their children as men do. So girls develop an identity by imitating their mothers. Boys develop an identity in the being not female, opposing female. I am the not woman. And boys whose mothers are rarely present often have an even stronger identity of negation of females. You can see that in rap music. They negate their emotional connection, their need for others. As women, we are more allowed to need other people, to need help. That's part of what we get from our mothers and child rearers in the matriarchy of our formative years, and we can model ourselves on that. The one need that men are allowed and actually pushed into is the need for sex. U.S. culture exaggerates men's sexual needs while repressing their more vulnerable needs for other people. The only true male neediness within this gender stereotype is the need for sex, which becomes a stand-in for a whole range of other needs. That's one of the reasons that all the mass murderers in the period of 3 months I studied had 2 things in common. They lost both tokens of madness, of maleness. Madness is a good slip, but one of them is They lost a woman's love, or a man's love if they were gay, and they also lost a job. 1-2 punch. They didn't all lose both, but they all lost at least one. Dominating women through sexual assault is one way that men can solve that contradiction between being manly by needing sex and yet not needing the approval of a woman to gain sexual access to her. The incels, the involuntary celibate who organize, testify that they shouldn't have to need women's approval, that they are owed sex from women because of their male gender. Women have no right to withhold permission to them. A macabre manifestation of this sexual need and shame at need is illustrated by the fact that in the U.S., the life expectancy of a prostitute is 34 years old, whereas the life expectancy of other women is approximately 82 years old. Men may kill the women that they have sex with to resolve the contradiction of being sexual, manly, and needing, so they kill their need through killing the prostitute. And that probably also relates to the fact that the biggest cause of homicide of women between 15 and 44 is death by husbands, lovers, or potential suitors. Those murders are murders of both domination of need and also because a lot of men have repressed their need and put all their needs into anger or sex. They don't know their needs. They just know they're needy and upset and take it out on women. There's more on that. If you repress all your feelings except sexual feelings, and when you're little except anger, boys are allowed to be angry, not needy, not ashamed, not lonely, but angry. Often men really don't recognize their needs at all. They've been talked out of them. That's why little boys are given guns to play with, rock'em sock'em robots, guns, and other macho things. And little girls are given dolls and dress up and makeup. The recreation that is aimed at boys is rougher. Football, ice hockey, wrestling, boxing. Men are praised for violence. And adult males play their own violent video games and sports like football. It's interesting that football players and other violent sports people have a disproportionate amount of sex abuse and sexual harassment. Now, why is it changing? This has been around forever. What's happening that this is being uncovered, and why? A class beam may shed its light on that. Women used to be in a feudal class position relative to men. They were the unpaid, domestic, sexual, child workers in the homes controlled by men. That's changed. The mass of women have joined the workforce. We make our own money. We have our own power. The majority of American women in our society are single, and single by choice, because women don't want to be genderized into doing all the emotional, sexual, and house and child work, while we also have to be out in the capitalist workforce making money. And I think the underpinnings of sexual harassment and sexual abuse are dissolving as women are empowered across the world. And men have not adjusted and want to hold on to a perk of male power that they still long for, in a way that's very sad for the men who would benefit a whole lot more from having intimate, trusting, and loving relationships with their sex partners, whether male or female, rather than powerful, coercive relationships in which they expect domestic servitude. That's changing in the United States, and a lot of men haven't adjusted to it, and a lot of women haven't either. In the film The Wife, which just got an Academy Award, the protagonist serves her husband, and he gets all the credit, but she hasn't rebelled. She's signing up for it also. It's a film about old-time type relationships. And Glenn Close, in her acceptance speech, says that she was moved to tears because her mother once said to her, at 80 years old, her mother who brought her up and her siblings up and took care of her father, "I did nothing with my life. Nothing." Because all those skills associated with women, creating order and cleanliness, creating life, creating the conditions for sustenance of all of our lives, have been devalued. And men have been given a sexual permission and an anger permission, which is sad and also terribly lonely. That's why it's men who fall apart when there are divorces or separations. Women who still connect with our friends, our children, our relatives, and are emotionally connected rather than have to be connected through sex, can do okay. We grieve, but we manage. And so, in this talk today, I am hoping that I have connected our feudal past as women and as men with the fight and the revelation of sex harassment and sexual abuse in America today. Thank you for listening. This episode has been brought to you by Democracy at Work. Please support our work. Visit our website at democracyatwork.info.